Breeders' Cup Eve 2022 and Future Stars Friday is already over. First of 2 days for Breeders' Cup 2022 already in the books. And we're going to take a look at the betting show for Saturday and try to get you some winners. We really, overall my betting on Friday was a little off. I had a few plays that I did make on some exactas, couldn't really connect. I had some first place finishers and some third place finishers in some pick fives. Just wasn't able to close the deal. I had some horses on a couple of tickets and then couldn't finish them off on the other tickets. So we're going to go through each of the Saturday plays one by one. Remember, if you have some questions, make sure to submit those questions so we can answer your questions. We're also going to take a look at some long shots and plays for Saturday. So before we get into the actual card, I do want to talk about some of the things that I've noticed. I think the California horses are going to be up against it. They did not do well today. They have the short fields. They have a lack of pace. And I think that overall, the West Coast horses are up against it. The Derby Bandit is in the house. He is wishing everybody good luck tomorrow. He hit the Superfecta in the last race today at Keeneland on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be shorting the California horses on Saturday. And I definitely think the turf courses out west are a little on the subpar side. We saw that with the 2-year-olds. And I think with the 3-year-olds tomorrow, horses like Going to Vegas and Masterpiece and some of the other ones are going to be up against it. Now, the Europeans, they've been having some short fields. They've had a lack of cover all season. I think some of those horses are going to possibly improve. We saw that in the full fields today at the turf. And I think overall the Europeans are going to be liking the firm course and they're going to like the full field so they can get that cover and then making a run. We saw Meditate with an explosive finish today, a daring ride by the jockey William Buick on in the final race, got nabbed at the wire by the Aidan O'Brien, but the Appleby horses and the Aidan O'Brien horses came to play today, and I think that's going to continue tomorrow. Of course, Appleby has a favorite in Modern Games and also with Rebels Romance. I'm not sure both of those horses are going to win, but definitely the European fillies, I think, have some strong horses. We saw it in the 2-year-old fillies today, and I think we're going to see it tomorrow. Nashua, Toy, and those type of horses are going to be live, especially if you can play a horse like Tuesday, that might be a little bit longer of a price. So I'm definitely going to be playing the European fillies in the filly and mare turf. I don't think an Italian can walk the dog and get on the front lead and finish like some of the Europeans can in that race. So with that in mind, let's take your questions and start off with the filly and mare sprint. A 13-horse field, and this one I think is going to have a fast pace. We saw today a couple of times, especially in the Cave Rock race, a 70-1 shot trained by Paul Lobo kind of gave Cave Rock some hassle on the front end, and Cave Rock was not able to relax and lay off that pace. He ended up paying the price running second. Meanwhile, in this race, what I see as some of the front runners, now we did have a scratch. We had one scratch out of this race. So I see Speed with Goodnight Olive. I also think Frank's Rocket could be up there. I think a horse like Edgeway could be up there. And I think those 3 horses could be showing some speed. Slammed came off the pace just a little bit in her last race. And Echo Zulu, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies last year, she could be strong here. She won her prep race. She scratched the day of the Acorn. And I think she is going to be best as a one-turn sprinter if they do run her next year as a 4-year-old. She did draw on the outside. Chi-Town Lady had a big close the last time. And I also think Obligatory is going to like the 7-furlong distance. CC won this race last year, but I do think she ran a small field the last time, but she may be benefited by having a full field. I don't think last year's field was as strong as this year's field. It was a small field. Gamine was the big favorite. Cece came rolling late to pick up the pace. And Cece, you look at some of her races, they did stretch her out. Then they cut her back to sprinting. She had kind of a similar prep last year before going on to win the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. You can also make a Cave Goodnight Olive her last 3 races. Any one of those 3 is capable of winning this race. And then Frank's Rockette, I think she prefers 6 furlongs. She's going to have to try to gut it out for 7 furlongs. I think Edgeway just doesn't have the current form that horses like Slammed, Sterling Silver, Wicked Halo. I'm going to be fading Wicked Halo. Both Steve Asmussen runners coming back on 2 weeks rest, Wicked Halo and Goodnight. They're 3-year-olds taking on older horses, and I just don't think they're up to this grade 1 level of competition. So that is the Filly and Mare Sprint. I'm looking for a closer. When I look at this race, I'm going to be favoring the closers. I see a lot of speed. I'm going to be using horses like Slammed, Goodnight Olive, and Obligatory as my main A horses. And also the main thing that I'm going to be looking for here is who can maybe get a good trip. I think Echo Zulu has the type of class. She has grade 1 class, and she has been training over the track. I do think she can get a good trip from that outside post position. Now, remember, in this race, you can play some tries and superfectas. The Derby Bandit are going to be playing 50-cent try box 1358. And if you have a play, give me your top pick in the Filly and Mare Sprint for tomorrow. Now, definitely Goodnight Olive, Chad Brown, Bill Mott. He's got a big day tomorrow. He's got Obligatory. He's got Warlike Goddess. He's going to be bringing in Olympiad in the Breeders' Cup Classic to take on Flightline. All of his horses seem to be coming into this race very well. So if you have a question or a comment, on a horse that you're kind of liking, make sure to submit your questions for the Saturday Breeders' Cup action. I thought the track was playing fair today. I thought what we saw was some horses that have been getting by with some kind of subpar trips with not a lot of pace. We saw a fast pace in the juvenile fillies, and we saw a fast pace in the juvenile on the dirt. And a lot of these jockeys, they're just not used to facing these fast paces. And you can kind of see some of them that couldn't adjust. Normally, you want the veteran jockeys like Tyler Gaff Leone. You want a jockey like Joel Rosario, maybe even Flavian Prat. We'll see what he chooses to do in that one. Now, the Chef King says Midnight Olive. Yep, I definitely think Midnight Olive has a chance to run a strong race. That last race at Saratoga, now, again, that was a little bit smaller field. I think with this full field, the pace could be a little bit hotter. And I do like some of the horses on the outside that could be rolling late. So Midnight Olive will definitely be on my A level. But I also think with the speed figures in there, Obligatory like 7 furlongs. I think Echo Zulu like 7 furlongs, although she is a 3-year-old facing older horses. So that's kind of some thoughts here on the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. We go next to the Turf Sprint, another full field. Bran was scratched today, so Bran will not be running. And we've got Caravel, Casa Creed, a 2-time grade 1 winner, defeated Regal Glory. Go Bears Go ran second in the Turf Sprint last year to Golden Pale. Now, Golden Pale was basically 1-5 in both of his last 2 races. He won at Saratoga, he won at Keeneland, and then last year at Del Mar, remember the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint last year was 5 furlongs at Del Mar. This year at Keeneland, Golden Pale has got to go 5.5 furlongs, and I do think that could make a difference for Golden Pale. I think he's going to be all out to try to get the 5.5 furlongs. So for the Turf Sprint, when I look at this race, I think if Golden Pale, who's going to be struggling a little bit late with that final half furlong, you've got some closers like Creative Force. He drew well on the inside. Campanelle, he's got some grade 1 class. Arrest Me Red has some races I think you can take a look at. And then Highfield Princess, another one, high class Euro. But Casa Creed, he got the run last year in the Jaipur Stakes. He got a late run in the 4-Star Dave at a flat mile this year. So I think a horse even like Casa Creed could be long a price shot here. So Derby Bandit's going to be playing long shots in the 2nd and 3rd spot. Believe his 2 keys are Golden Pale and Campanelle. So If you have a question or a comment, make sure to get them in. Remember, the races start early tomorrow on Saturday. The early bird gets the worm. We're going to start it off with a maiden special weight for 2-year-olds. Then we go to a allowance race, non-winners of 2. Messier, who hasn't run since the Kentucky Derby, will be running in that second race. And then we go into the big dogs, the filly and mare sprint, to kick off the Breeders' Cup races on Saturday. So my overall thoughts here are Golden Pal going to try to go for 3 straight Breeders' Cup wins. I think there's some chaos potential. I do agree with the Chef King. He says Highfield Princess is the real deal. And Diane says, I would love Casa Creed if it was a little bit longer. Yeah, you know, they had their choice. They had a win and you're in the 4-star Dave to run in the mile. And then, you know, they lost a prep race at Keeneland and to Annapolis. But I didn't think Casa Creed got a good trip that day. But he does seem to do his best running as a late running sprinter for Casa Creed. Golden Pal, the big question, is 5.5 furlongs. He won last year at 5 furlongs at Old Del Mar. And then you've got Go Bears Go, second last year at 12-1. He's 30-1 on the morning line. And then Campanelle, I think, also has a shot to maybe run a good race. Siggy Mendoza says in the filly and mare sprint, Cece is going to be rolling late. That one could be. I like the fact that she's ran some longer races, so she kind of gets that cutback angle. She ran against Latruska at Oaklawn Park in a longer race. So the turf sprint, Breeders' Cup race number 2 tomorrow. Golden Pal, the favorite. I think he is a little bit vulnerable just because of the 5.5 furlongs. Next race up, we've got the Dirt Mile, another full field. A key scratch in this race, if you have not heard, Laurel River, who probably would have been one of the co-favorites with either Cody's Wish as the favorite. Laurel River was 7-2 morning line. Bob Baffert announcing he scratched today. Laurel River scratched. Now that means Cody's Wish will be a shorter price, but it also means Cody's Wish probably has a greater chance to win. Cyberknife, I have a feeling Cyberknife is going to be sent. Now he did win at 6.5 furlongs. He ran a good race at 1 1/16. He's cutting back out of a 1.25 mile race. Now, I like cutbacks, but normally you don't see 1.25 miles to a mile. We did see that with a Breeders' Cup winner a few years ago. You had Liam's Map cut back out of the Whitney from 1 1/8 miles and then cut back to the mile. He was a big favorite, trained by Todd Pletcher. So interesting, Brad Cox choosing to cut back Cyberknife and not take on Flightline and Epicenter in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Law Professor, a big race the last time to Life is Good. He improved his speed figures by about 20 points in that race. Now, Pipeline, I think, benefits from the scratch of Laurel River. I think he could be up there on the lead. And I go back to Simplification. He has a race. Remember when he broke a little bit slow and had an outside post at Gulfstream? Now, he's still got to prove that he can run a big race outside Gulfstream. But I do think he can close, and I do think the pace could get a little bit hot. Now, Slow Down Andy had a big win on the turf 2 races ago, cuts back on the dirt the last time, now draws inside at a flat mile. A little bit to consider there as a long shot. And then 3 Technique. Remember on Derby Day when he won at 30-1, flattened out against Senior Buscador the last time. He ran an even third. I think they're going to lay a little bit further back and try to make one run. And then Senior Buscador, that New Mexico pride, he's going to try to go out there, I think, and come from off the pace. He's got a wicked turn of foot. He ran a big race a couple of years ago at Remington in the Springboard Mile. We're going to see Richard says he likes Cyberknife, and Richard also says Cyberknife is his best horse on Saturday. Shots will be fired. Now, Brad Cox didn't have that great of a day today. I thought Verifying would show a little bit more speed. He really didn't run well. And Chop Chop was bet down to 2-1, 8-wide trip on that race, but really just didn't seem to be firing after running a huge race the last time. So maybe the Cox horses are a little bit cold. We'll see tomorrow, but sometimes you do see that. Some trainers get hot and other trainers can kind of cool off for this 2 days. Bob Baffert had a couple of 3-5s beaten today. He had Arabian Lion beaten on the undercard, ran second to a Brad Cox horse that won at 7-1. And then, of course, Cave Rocket 3-5 losing to the Forte trained for Todd Pletcher. His horses seem to run well today for Todd Pletcher. And also Appleby had a couple of nice runs today. And I think Aidan O'Brien's got some live horses tomorrow as well. So the Dirt Mile, basically, I think it could be a pace meltdown. My top picks, I'm still going to be going. I'm going to be fading Gunite. I don't like that two-week turnaround on Gunite. I don't think he's fast enough, and I don't think he's ready to face grade 1 older horses. I will be using Simplification a little bit. I do like Pipeline, and I think Cody's Wish, big races at a mile, and then Senior Buscador and 3 Technique are also worth using in a race like this. What do you call a horse who never loses a race? Undefeated. We call him Flightline. We call him Cody's Wish. He's a monster at a mile. So definitely a horse for that distance for a horse like Cody's Wish, who, of course, the last time out ran a big race at Saratoga. Cody's Wish probably going to be about 2-1 now with the scratch of Laurel River. If you have a question, make sure to get it in here. Now, overall for my Dirt Mile, Laurel River late scratch. There's going to be less pace in the race. I think Cyberknife will be up on the front end. I'm going to be leaning to the closers. You got Cody's Wish, you got Simplification, you got Senior Buscador, and I also think you may want to take a little bit of a look, possibility at Slow Down Andy or 3 Technique. I do think we're going to have a 10-1 or 2 to win tomorrow. Today in the 5 races, everybody talked about the favorites all week, and we only had 1 favorite win in 5 races. That was Meditate. Cave Rock ran second. The big favorite, Silver Knot, ran second. Chop Chop ran out of the money. And then we started off with a 7-1. So, definitely 1 for 5 with favorites on Friday in the Breeders' Cup. Now let's move along. Now we've got the filly and mare turf. We got some 3-year-olds. We got some older horses. And this one, you've got the European horses. You've got Nashua, who most likely will be favored. A lot of people are talking about Above the Curve and Tuesday and Toy. Now, Rugier went to Woodbine the last time. This horse has been bet down 3-4 races for Chad Brown. Ran well on a soft course, disappointed a couple of times as the favorite. I do think Virginia Joy is going to like the distance. And then in Italian, wire-to-wire, back-to-back races. Got to go a little bit further. Not a lot of other speed. You could maybe see in Italian trying to walk the dog on the front end. But Moira, a big race the last time up at Woodbine. She won a big race with the fillies, and now she's going to take on second race on the turf. Last time out, she may have been best. And I think Moira is definitely going to be under her morning line of 10-1. I also think Above the Curve could be bet down. A horse that was entered for the turf and the filly and mare turf is Miss Encine. I like the 3-year-old fillies in this race. A lot of times the 3-year-old fillies do well in the Arc. They do well late in the year on British Champions Day. They carry a lot of weight, and they face full fields. And I think the filly division has been the stronger of the 2 divisions all summer long in Europe. So I like Nashua, Above the Curve, Tuesday, Toy, and I think Miss Encine is kind of going to be about 30 or 40-1, and that's a horse that I want to toss in, at least on a small pick 5 ticket. So Miss Encine, my top pick, I like Tuesday. I do like Virginia Joy. I think she's got a shot. I'm going to be fading Moira a little bit. We'll see what else can happen in that race. But this is a race that I think I'm going to go a little bit deeper, kind of have this be a spread race for the filly and mare turf. Moving along to the next race, we've got the sprint, 6 furlongs. They'll be battling it out to find out who the fastest sprinter in the world. Of course, we've seen some big-time sprinters. Last year was Aloha West winning at a price. Jackie's Warrior going to be right around 4-5 in this race. He lost as the favorite 2 years ago on Breeders' Cup Day and the Juvenile. He lost last year in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He broke a step slow, never really got involved in the race, and Aloha West won in the final stride. This year, we've got a front runner in Jackie's Warrior. The only other speed is probably the filly Kamari, trained by Wesley Ward. He does well at Keeneland. I think this was a good spot for Kamari. 9 for 16 lifetime. I do think she likes 6 furlongs. I think the mile filly and mare 7 furlong race would have been a little bit too long for Kamari. So I do think this was a good spot for Kamari to enter the sprint. Jackie's Warrior, the last time out, Cody's Wish beat him, so a good horse beat him, but the distance might have got to him. Also, it was getting some pressure from Pipeline, going 7 furlongs, now gets to cut back to 6. Won earlier on the season at Saratoga at 6. He also won at Churchill Downs, won last year at 6 furlongs. So I do think 6 to 6.5 furlongs is probably the best distance for a horse like Jackie's Warrior. So Jackie's Warrior. Now, I do think a couple of people have mentioned American Theorem. Don't think that this horse is just a closer. He won the Bing Crosby. He was slower, made his move going into the turn. He had some class as a 3-year-old. They kind of put him on the Derby trail. Since cutting back to a sprinter, I think he's a stone cold sprinter, and I think American Theorem could be live in this spot. Of course, Laurel River won that last race at 7 furlongs, the Pat O'Brien, but the Bing Crosby was won by American Theorem. They tried to stretch him out 1.16 miles. So to me, he's still that classy cutback horse, had some class as a 3-year-old. And then also Elite Power may be the now horse. He's won 3 in a row, good trainer. His speed figures stack up. He's been facing weaker races. This time he's got to face the heavyweights of the division and has got to face some truer speed like Manny Kamari. Now, Maniwa won the Keeneland race to prep, so he's got to win over the track. And then Obesos, another one who's ran some big races, an older horse, and seems to have kind of been prepped up for this race. American Theorem had a little bit of a break. Then they cut him back. He comes in on a nice little layoff, as Siggy mentions, resting up, training. George Papa Padromo, he's got this one cranked, and Papa Padromo's had a big year. It'd be nice to see a new trainer like Papa Padromo, who's been on the California circuit for a lot of years, to pick up a nice Breeders' Cup win. The horse has got some good breeding, American Theorem. Elite Power, I can make the case for. I'm not going to be playing Willie Boy. I don't like Flash of Mischief. So to me, if you're going with the speed, you've got Kamari and Jackie's Warrior. I'm leaning closers. I'm going to be using American Theorem and Elite Power on a few more tickets just because I think they might have a little bit of a shot. The Phoenix has produced a few winners. And of course, Maniwa, he's one of the veterans in this race, definitely capable on his best day to run a big race. The Breeders' Cup Sprint, 6 furlongs, going to be the final leg of, we're into the pick 6 at this time. We're also, actually, we're not into the pick 6, but part of the pick 5 for the middle pick 5 on the card at Keeneland. Of course, the pick 6 will end with the Breeders' Cup Classic and Flightline, and then the turf race is the second to the last race of the day. So the sprint, I guess overall, I'm leaning a little bit of a speed duel. If you want to key Jackie's Warrior in an exacta, I would recommend playing over American Theorem as one of your exactas. Now, that is a look at the Breeders' Cup Sprint at 6 furlongs. If you have a horse that you like, make sure to get that up here. Of course, Maniwa coming out of the Keeneland win, Obesos with some back class, American Theorem, and then Aloha West. He's been burning up the track in the mornings. We'll see if he can repeat as a back-to-back sprint winner. Midnight Loot did it a while back for trainer Bob Baffert, winning in back-to-back years. Now the mile, full field. Look at this one, pack a lunch. You got Pogo at the rail, Dream Loper, who's a second generation for that trainer. He trained the mare. Modern Games, who blew away the field in the Woodbine Mile. But now here's the key to Modern Games. He traveled all the way to the Europe for British Champions Day, so a cross-Atlantic flight. Now on 2 weeks rest, he travels all the way back to America and has to run on 2 weeks rest. What do you think of that strategy for trainer Charlie Appleby? His Woodbine Mile was a 111 on the Brisnet scale, but it's he had to ship all the way over after that race from Canada. Then he had to come back on the ship, and then now he's got to face a horse like Kinross, who won on Breeders' Cup Championship Day. Lawrence says Modern Games could be worn out. We'll see if Lawrence is right. And then you've got Order Australia, who ran big race the last time out at Keeneland. Annapolis, a 3-year-old for Todd Pletcher. He won the last race. He won at Keeneland. Malavath, Actually, this is, Malavath. And then you've got Beyond Brilliant, some California horses, Smooth Like Straight. He seems to always run second and third. And Modern Games probably going to be favored, but I think Kinross will take a lot of money. And I also think Ivar, Paul Lobo, he's going after it for the third straight year, trying to get Ivar in. Ivar ran a wide trip the last time out at Keeneland. What do you think? Can Ivar get the job done? Lawrence says Modern Games is worn out. He says, bet the rent money, Kinross or Dreamloper. All right, let's go to the bank. Me and Derby Bandit, we are not going to pay the rent. I'm going to cancel my check. I'm going to put it all on Kinross and Dreamloper. We'll see if we can pay the rent this month. Siggy Mendoza and Derby Bandit, we're going to put the rent money on those two. Simon says, box Regal Glory, Ivar, Dreamloper, and Modern Games. I do like Regal Glory in this spot. I think she's got the right kind of running style, and this race could get a little bit of a hot pace again. We might get a little bit of rain tomorrow, so it might be a little bit softer course. I don't think we're going to get a lot of rain. Trish says that could favor Kinross if we do get a little bit of soft ground. Now, a lot of times the Europeans have been running on some of the soft courses. So a horse like Modern Games probably didn't like the soft course a couple of weeks ago on British Champions Day. He probably wants a firm course, whereas I think like Pogo, Dreamloper, Ivar, and even a horse like Domestic Spending, they may prefer more of a softer course for Saturday's action. Yesterday, they were forecasting a little bit of rain. Simon says Modern Games looked fantastic on the gallops this week. Appleby says it's his best chance at a winner. JJ says too many analysts he trusts, says fade Kinross. 13th post position. Yeah, definitely something to consider. Domestic Spending. Talk about this one. Yes, a big long layoff, has not run in 2022, hasn't run since the Arlington Million last year, entered for Chad Brown, drew the 14th post position, does have grade 1 class, and he does have some good races at a mile to a mile and a 16th. So the mile's a good distance for him, but I'm not sure the pace is going to be that hot. And can he outfinish a horse like Ivar, Modern Games, Dreamloper? I do think he probably overall would prefer a firm course for Domestic Spending, and that is a long layoff. But I think the price will be right. You might be getting 15-1 on a horse like Domestic Spending. Daily Double, Richard says Malavath and Malathot. The Killer M's. Remember Mantle and Maris in the 60s? Now we've got Malavath and Malathot for the Daily Double, playing the mile into the distaff. And how many singles, Ronnie says, for the pick 6? I think a lot of people are going to be singling Flightline. Some people like Nest. Other people like Modern Games. Some people might single Jackie's Warrior. I think those are your potential singles on the card tomorrow for that pick 6. Dreamloper for Chef King. She couldn't handle Order of Australia real easily. Of course, Dreamloper is one of the Euros. Now, when I was watching that last replay for Dreamloper, a horse fell down and about 4 or 5 horses got cut off. So Dreamloper was kind of ahead of that traffic, and I thought she got a good trip the last time. She has had about 60, 70 days off since that race, so she should be ready to fire the best race for Dreamloper. Trish says her singles are Jackie's Warrior, Nest, and Flightline. Those are some good singles. I think if you can get a couple of singles tomorrow, that'll give you your best chance to cover some of the other races. And I believe Trish is located in Kentucky, so maybe she's actually going to be out at Keeneland. Trish, are you going to be out at Keeneland tomorrow? Anybody watching the broadcast going to be at Keeneland tomorrow? I will be playing from Minnesota. Leave me a note where you will be playing from. Beyond Brilliant, probably I like him better from the California horses than Smooth Like Straight. I'm going to be playing Modern Games kind of as a B. I'm going to be using Ivar, Regal Glory, Malavath, and Kinross as my keys, and then Dreamloper on some of my backup tickets. A prop on Buick getting the most wins for JL. Boy, Buick riding that last race, that was a gutsy rail ride by the favorite in that last race today. He got nosed out. but definitely that 4 taking the inside trip in Silver Knot. Buick, boy, he had to have just no all guts in that race. I'd like to see the straight on cam on that one. You can't trust Jackie's Warrior, only Nest, according to Ronnie Bravo. Trish Smith says yes. She is in Lexington. You got to love Keeneland. I think JL, yeah, that last one hurt. That was a gutsy ride by Silver Knot, losing him and the bobbed at the wire, and just the narrowest of victories. A great ride, I thought, by Buick. And also just, of course, the Europeans just have that closing kick on some of these races. Let's go to the turf. Big full field again. We've got a favorite here in, I think, Rebels Romance. And then I think Warlike Goddess are going to be the big 2 favorites. Bye Bye Melvin set the pace the last time against Warlike Goddess. Stone Age is a 3-year-old. Broom is interesting. He's been running in some of the grade 1 races. Interesting, though, Rebels Romance ran in a couple of grade 1s, but more the German grade 1s and not the European grade 1s. I think he's a distance horse. 1.5 miles is a great distance. I'm not sure if he has that turn of foot like a horse like Mishriff does, or even a Warlike Goddess. I think Broom could maybe improve better than his past performances. I'm going to be fading Rebels Romance a little bit. I like Broom. I like Nation's Pride. I noticed today in the doubles bet, the juvenile turf doubles into the turf doubles, which had about 150,000 in the pool, they were playing Nation's Pride heavily favored more than even Rebels Romance in the 2-day double. I don't know if it finished that way, but early on they were playing Nation's Pride and Warlike Goddess as bigger favorites than Rebels Romance. Mishriff is winless in 2022, but he's been facing horses like Baid. He ran on British Champions Day. I think a jockey switch could be key for Mishriff. I think he's going to get cover. I think he's been running in shorter fields. Now, he did have better form in 2021. Simon says, who will prefer the soft ground? I think Nation's Pride will like a soft ground. I think Broom will like a soft ground. And I also think a horse like even Stone Age could improve. Stone Age, actually held on for 5th in that big arc field, and he was passed early on in the stretch, and he still kind of kept on staying with it. I think if he can lay a little bit further back and make a move into the stretch, I think Stone Age could be a little bit closer here. So I think the key to this race is how you use Rebels Romance. Do you use him as kind of your key, or do you use him as more of a backup 2nd, 3rd place trifecta horse? Or do you try to go into the doubles, into the classic with Warlike Goddess and maybe Mishriff and a horse like Nation's Pride and try to beat a horse like Rebels Romance? I think there's lots of ways you can go in this race. I'm going to be fading Rebels Romance a little bit. I do like Nation's Pride. Scott Jones says, after the dominant performance of the Europeans today, he'll be leaning heavily on them all in the all-turf pick 4. Nothing wrong with that strategy, Scott. I definitely think the Euros were impressive today. And also, I think they got bigger full fields and they got a faster pace. Some of these races over in Europe have had some really slow paces this year. And I think it hurt a little bit Modern Games the last time. I think it hurt a horse like Baid the last time. The Europeans need to cover. They are used to carrying the heavier weight, and now they're running on tighter turns, but they don't have to run into the hill down the stretch. I think that's going to improve a horse like Stone Age and Broom. Broom, I thought, ran a big race last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf. 19 of the 24 winners bred overseas. That note coming from Richard. And JL says Nation's Pride, Broom Exacta on the ticket for him. So it looks like we could get a little bit of rain tomorrow, according to Simon. He's going to be out with his umbrella checking the forecast for us. Lots of ways to go in the Breeders' Cup Turf. And also the Classic. Let's take a look at it. 8-horse field, no scratches as of this evening. Taba Bob Baffert. Life is Good. Todd Pletcher. Todd Pletcher also has Happy Saver. A note, Happy Saver has been battling a quarter crack, and Happy Saver didn't run much last year because he had a quarter crack. He was lightly raced as a 3-year-old. I think this is a recurring problem. Hard for me to recommend Happy Saver with that quarter crack. Of course, a long time ago, Best Pal won the Pacific Classic with a quarter crack. Flightline, the 3-5 favorite, they absolutely hammered him in the Juvenile Classic doubles. Hot Rod Charlie's been training forwardly for Doug O'Neill. Hot Rod Charlie second last year in the Belmont. He won the Pennsylvania Derby. Epicenter, the Travers winner. Now, I see this race as the speed is Life is Good. Now, Life is Good defeated Knicks Go on the square, wire to wire in the Pegasus, after Knicks Go had won the Breeders' Cup Classic last year, wire to wire. Life is Good went wire to wire in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Life is Good had the lead on Jackie's Warrior last year in the Jerkin Stakes. The most raw speed is Life is Good. If Irad Ortiz goes to the lead and uses that speed, how long he is in the front, and if they go 110 and change, that changes the entire complexion of the race. Then I think you want to lean towards closers behind Flightline in the exacta. That could be Hot Rod Charlie. It could be Taba. Epicenter, I think, will be the second favorite in the race. And then a Rich Strike also could take advantage of Life is Good. And, you know, Olympiad came off the pace the last time, going 1.25 miles. To note, Olympiad has won at Churchill Downs before. He has won at the 1.25 miles the last time. He won at Keeneland. He's got 6 wins on the year. He's put in a full campaign, continues to train well, and it's a well-known fact. Bill Mott, he just gets his horse to cycle into good races on the Breeders' Cup. He's been doing this for 35 to 40 years now on Breeders' Cup Day. I always take a second look at any Bill Mott horse. So Olympiad, he's kind of long in some of the daily double will pays for the Classic. Maybe he could run second. So Christian says, American turf horses are beating all the Euro horses. They've been hit lately against the Euro horses. So there's that. Janet's going with Trish Smith. Shots will be fired. Tyler Paul says Life is Good is going to crush Flightline. And this guy says Stone Age in the Turf. That's Eric. And Ronnie Bravo says Epicenter is the only horse that can beat Flightline. And of course, Eric, Baffert used to train Life is Good. He said he is as fast as Flightline. That's early on. I think drawing the 2 post position, Life is Good should send from that second post position. He should have the lead at the 4 furlong mark. Remember, Flightline did break a little bit slow in the Met Mile. And then he rushed up against Speaker's Corner and then led into the stretch and kind of came home late. Now, in the Pacific Classic, he broke a little bit slow. He was a little bit rank rushing up to meet the leader in that race. And then he threw down that 23 quarter from the 4 furlong to the 6 furlong pole, and it was over. He was up by 3, and then he was up by 10. And after that, he just kind of named his own distance. So I don't know. I think on speed figures, he's probably going to run closer to maybe a 120 tomorrow, maybe to a 115. That's still good enough. I don't think we'll see a 126 again, but we will get a fast pace, which means we should get a fast speed figure. Normally, when you get a fast pace, you get a fast speed figure. When you get slow paces, you get slower speed figures. Epicenter, they've been training all year to come from off the pace. He could be second in the exacta or somebody to use as an alternative on your doubles or daily doubles. Christian says, I know that Flightline is winning, but who's coming in second from the back? That could be Epicenter. And this is true. Yep, Tyler, he has seen it before. This isn't his first rodeo. He says every time there's a race that looks to be too good to be true, there's always some fails. So you can't win them all. Cave Rock was 3-5 today, lost. Silver Knot was even money, lost. Only 1 for 5 favorites today in the Breeders' Cup. Remember, this is the best of the best, facing the best. We get no easy leads. Horses look each other in the eyes. This is the grade 1 level, and it does determine the men from the boys. Scott Jones says Andy Beyer is predicting a 130 speed figure tomorrow in the Classic. Christian says, do you think Flightline going to go all out? Probably. I think this is the last race of Flightline's career. If If Flavian Prat has the lead down the stretch, I think he's going to maybe check out the transmission a little bit here. If not, he's going to have to grind out the win. Lots of ways to go in this for the exacta. I think that could be the key to play it if you like Flightline. Otherwise, a couple of small bets with some of these other horses, you could hit a nice little double. Now, it is a short stretch at Keeneland. Keep that in mind. If Flightline, whoever has the lead coming into the stretch may be able to win it. Keeneland has a notorious short stretch. Let's move on. Flightline, of course, 5 for 5 in his career. Big win last race out. He's won by over 40 lengths in his 5 races. He's by Tappet out of an Indian Charlie. Of course, Indian Charlie was favored in the Kentucky Derby. He was trained by Bob Baffert. Didn't win the Kentucky Derby, but he did win the Santa Anita Derby. He beat Real Quiet that day, and then Real Quiet came back to win the Kentucky Derby. Flightline, favorite in the Classic. My best bet tomorrow is going to be Warlike Goddess. Who's got some best bets? Let's get your best bets up there. Lauren says he's going Life is Good, Flightline, in an all-out speed duel. Richard says he loves the Flightline with the jets, ready for takeoff. Little airplane. Andy Beyer projecting a 130 as the kiss of death. That could be. Scott Jones says, I hope not. So, yeah, I'm going with Warlike Goddess as my best bet of the day tomorrow. Who do you got for your best bet of the day? Charlie says Flightline hasn't beaten much. An off-form Country Grammar. I think that's true. Speaker's Corner went off form. Never came back after really running great in the spring, but his summer and fall campaigns were not that good. Siggy says AP is his best bet of the day tomorrow. American Theorem, I think that means. Tyler Paul says Forte was his best bet today. And his best bet for Simon is Highfield Princess and Ivar. Paul Lobo is going to have Ivar ready, according to Simon O'Neill. Richard says Modern Games is his best bet for Saturday at the Breeders' Cup. And you've also got Ronnie Bravo says Nap is the American Theorem. Ronnie says Nest. The best bet is Nest. Diane says Nation's Pride is her best bet of the day. So, yeah, some good best bets. Let's see here. So these are some long shots that I think you may want to include in your doubles or exactas or trifectas. These are horses that I'm going to be throwing in there. I like Mishriff to be in that trifecta and the turf. I like Arrest Me Red in the Golden Pal race. I think there's a lot of closers. I think Arrest Me Red has got some grade 1 form. He'll be 20-1. I think Hot Rod Charlie can be second, so you can use him maybe in an exacta or a trifecta. Go Bears Go was 12-1 last year and ran second. He's 30-1 in the morning line. I think Broom will like a soft course. So if there's a little bit of rain tomorrow, I think Broom could improve. I think Family Way is a long shot in that filly and mare turf. She ran a big race in New York this summer. Above the Curve is getting a little bit overlooked. And then Slow Down Andy could be 30-1, but I really think he could be in that trifecta in that third spot or the superfecta to make that dirt mile pay. So those are some long shots that I like tomorrow. I just think that some of these horses, anybody have any long shots tomorrow? Give me your long shots. Ed Men says, who is your best long shot? Jerry Duke. He likes Secret Oath. Secret Oath, of course, won the Kentucky Oaks. We have a Kentucky Oaks winner from last year in Malathot. We have a Kentucky Oaks winner this year in Secret Oath. Jerry going with Secret Oath as his best bet of the day. Richard says his long shot of the day is Simplification. I like that one if Simplification comes from off the pace and isn't near the speed early on. Ronnie Bravo wants to know everybody's live long shot. Scott Jones says he likes Virginia Joy. The German can run all day long in the filly and mare turf. Tyler Paul says best bet, just get rid of bet everything I read Ortiz is on. He's good for 2 to 3 races. Simon, let's see here. Above the Curve should run a big race according to Simon. That'll be a nice little price. I like Simplification. I think that he can come off the pace. That's where I want to see Simplification doing his best running. I want Cyberknife to be dueling with Cody's Wish and then Simplification to loop around at 15-1. Best bet for Tyler Paul is Casa Creed in the turf, going to take on Golden Pal. Brooke says her best bet is Rich Strike. Of course, he won at 80-1. He's going to probably be the longest shot on the board tomorrow. He'll get a pace, though, with Life is Good and Flightline up there, and possibility of even, Olympiad pressing the pace. That pace could get hot in the Classic. Society for Christian Verrill. Society went wire to wire in the Cotillion at 8-1 the last time. That was at 1 1/16. She could be the lone speed this time, with Malathot and Nest laying a little bit further back. And Society will be out winging it because Clairiere is a closer. Chain of Love for Janet in the sprint as a possible long shot. Anthony says Regal Glory in the Turf Mile as his long shot. Christian says Society is going gate to wire. Shots fired. Society at about 10-1 tomorrow. That would be a nice price. The Truth. They can't handle the Truth. Joel Rosario. He needs to ride better than he did on Chop Chop today, Richard. I thought he didn't really give Chop Chop a good chance to win in that race. Happy Saver underneath, according to Eric L. Of course, Happy Saver second to Life is Good, second in the Met Mile. Did you realize Happy Saver has ran closer to Flightline than any other horse has ever run when he ran second by 6 lengths in the Met Mile? Joel Rosario riding tomorrow. He's got some live horses. I do like the Truth. I do think the Truth could be live tomorrow. I think probably the best shot for him to win is probably with Jackie's Warrior for Joel Rosario. Rich Strike has a 0 shot, according to Charlie Burgess. And those are some live long shots for Breeders' Cup Saturday. I think 3 favorites that have the best chance to win: Flightline, Jackie's Warrior, and Nest. I would be surprised if all 3 of those favorites lost. I think all 3 of them are capable. I just don't think all 3 of those favorites are going to lose, but only 1 favorite won today out of the 5 races. I think we'll probably see 2 or 3 favorites win tomorrow out of the 9 Breeders' Cup races. And then, yes, I think Flightline will be interesting. I think it'll be his last race of his career, win or lose. I'm excited to see Nashua. Want to see what Nation's Pride and maybe even Above the Curve and Tuesday. And Miss Encine is another one of my long shots in that filly and mare turf. CC, according to Tyler Paul, Classic straight trifecta, 4, 7 with all, with 4 with 7. So that's what Anthony's going. So a big day tomorrow. Breeders' Cup Saturday. Place your bets. Hope you've enjoyed all the coverage the last 2-3 weeks. Do me a favor. I don't make a lot of money on these videos. The only way I make a little few dollars is if people see them. So smash that like button. Make a comment. That helps me get more views. Either pass along my channel to a friend, or make sure to comment or like the videos if you like them. Remember, we're going to start going to the 2023 Kentucky Derby. We're all going to be focusing on that as we wrap up our Breeders' Cup coverage. We're going to be doing some recap videos of the Breeders' Cup and then start getting you ready. We've got Cigar Mile Day. We got Future Stars. We got Clark. We still got some big races. The Malibu to close out the year. Opening day at Santa Anita. Brooke says best bet is Moira. Charlie says good show. Good luck tomorrow, Charles. And good luck everyone from Scott Jones. And Christian says she's going to watch from now on. Smash that like button. Hit subscribe. Good luck, everybody. Breeders' Cup Saturday, 2022. And remember, as D. Wayne Lucas says, people have opinions. Horses have the facts.